You want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered. And this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't going to be that fun. Everybody, welcome back. Another time to get together today, and it's just a lot going on, and I'm glad you're with us today on the podcast. Going to have another fun edition of the podcast today, talking about music. We've talked about movies. We've talked about, we've talked politics. We've talked with Matt Whitaker and John McLaughlin and everybody else, and we got a lot of stuff going on. But again, I wanted to have just a little bit of fun time before we get into the conventions, and we got all kinds of stuff. We got debates coming up that we're going to be covering. So again, just a lot going on. But right now, as you're transitioning from school, especially if you got kids, and just getting ready to the summertime, we wanted you to have some time and some just some fun stuff to take along with you on your trips. And so today, in just a minute after the break, we're going to talk albums that you would want to have on a deserted island. Okay, and we're going to take away the fact that you don't have electricity or anything else, but you're going to have them anyway. So we're going to have albums that you would like to, that you would be willing to listen to if it's all you had. And we got a couple that James and I'll talk about our favorites, and then we'll add in some others that you probably everybody will sort of agree on. So let's just going to have a fun time. Good, quick one today, talk about music. We'd love to hear your suggestions, DougCollinsPodcast.com, and hit the email button and let me know what you think. We'll talk to you later about that. But after the break, we're back with more music. We are experiencing instability at every level. Our government lacks leadership, and Bidenomics has been a disaster. The economy is in a fragile state. Inflation has been a consistent issue. High interest rates have put significant pressure on the real estate market, and there have been major bank failures. And many analysts say a stock market correction is likely overdue. We have global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East that have potential to spread, but gold has soared to record highs even among the tensions. There are so many reasons that Americans should consider investments in gold and silver, and Legacy Precious Metals is the gold standard. I love Legacy Precious Metals because of their zero-hassle, education-first approach. They can help you roll your traditional IRA into a gold IRA or ship metals directly to your house. That's what I do. So go to www.legacypminvestments.com to download their free gold investment guide. And look, I've read it. You need to read it. There's so much valuable information in there. So, friends, now's the time to not roll the dice with your hard-earned money. Find out about the growth potential that gold and precious metals can offer you. Contact Legacy Precious Metals today and tell them that Doug Collins sent you. You might have heard Mike Lindell and MyPillow no longer have the support of the box stores or the shopping channels the way they used to. They've been part of the cancel culture, so they want to pass the savings directly on to you by having a $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was just one product company. With the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products. Some of you may not even know about that. So to get the word out, I want to invite my listeners to check out the $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-pillow use MyPillows are just $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. There's 6-pack of towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels. You guessed it, just $25. And for the first time ever, the MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, just $25. All orders over $75 will see free shipping too. This amazing offer won't last long, so go to mypillow.com and use the promo code Collins, that's COLLINS, or call 800-986-3994 today. That's promo code Collins. All right. James, the thought came to me the other day. I heard this again, and it was like, if you were, what music or what would albums, and I'm going to go back to the old albums because they are making a comeback. I got for Christmas, we talked about this year. I got my Crosley little in the office here. I've got my albums over there, my 12-inch vinyls, and I'm so excited. Sure. One of my favorites that I play all the time is Miles Davis, which is amazing as it goes. But then I've also got Van Halen's 1984. I've got the Leonard Skinner, Gold and Platinum. I've got Bob Seger, Against the Wind, another outstanding album. I've got the soundtrack from Risky Business. By the way, if you've never just listened to the soundtrack from Risky Business, a really good soundtrack as you go through. And, a lot of other stuff. But, when we get down to this, music is one of those, just like movies that we've talked about here on the podcast, that really affect you and take you back to a certain place. And on Capitol Hill, folks, let me just also tell you this, and this is the learning part of the political part of the show. Songwriters and musicians don't get paid in this new world like they used to get paid. Okay. And I want you to understand this. So all of you who think that music on the internet is free, it's not free. Okay. People are not writing songs and recording songs and putting them out there for you to steal them. That's just not, it. I mean, used to, you'd go to the store and you'd buy your album, you'd buy your 45, you whatever. And royalties were divided. By the way, this industry is the most heavily regulated industry that you could imagine. The federal government is involved with the royalties on music. And if you didn't know this, that's why Hakeem Jeffries, who and I wrote a bill called the Music Modernization Act. Donald Trump signed it. It revitalized how songwriters and but musicians get paid in a digital age. Just to show you an example here, the writer for the song All About That Bass, everybody knows Meghan Trainor, All About That Bass. No, but anyway, 1 billion views on YouTube. The writer of that song on the YouTube royalties made $8,000. Now, just put this in perspective. If that had been in the time of Elvis, this person would have been almost a billionaire. And if you look at the same kind of thing. So, again, James, I don't want to put that out there because, folks, please listen to, encourage support the Spotify's of the world to pay their music. Spotify right now is trying to screw songwriters again. And they're and I hate to say it, I enjoy listening to Spotify. I pay my subscription so that they can do that. But now they're trying to say they're bundling so that they can cut rates to songwriters. And
we're an Apple family because my brother's got it.
Wrong. It's just Apple pays a good rate. The mothers pay a good rate. So and that's something you may not have known about, but I wanted you to know about it. Again, and there's this idea, again, free music. It's not free music, folks. And if we dry up the songwriter base in this country, then we're going to get a lot of the same 3 chords in a lick that you hear all the time. You're going to stop. Most people don't realize that, like George Strait, and we've talked about this on this podcast. So those who've listened for 2.5 years, 3 years on the podcast, you've heard the songwriters come on.
Keep listening.
No, you've heard this. So I need you to hear it again. Just like your mama telling you to eat your biscuit. Okay. George Strait, 60 number 1 country songs. He didn't write any of them. None of them. And he's the king of country music. Okay. So I just put this in perspective. So with all of that in mind, as we go on in this, I want to bring up what music would you keep with you if you could have, say, 2 albums, and then we'll talk about honorable mentions, okay? And again, I'm also one of these, James, that mine could change every day, okay?
Yeah, this is a very impossible task. And I'll tell you why it might be easier for you and harder for me. I am an iPod child.
Yeah.
So, yes, I grew up with the Walkman as a kid, and I had my CDs, but I also grew up with the Now CDs, which was a mix of music. And then we made our own mixes of music.
Wow.
And then when I got an iPod, I made mixes of music. But when you were younger, and my parents were younger, a little older than you are, you get one album, and then you got to flip it over if you were lucky to the B-side.
Oh, yeah.
But you was one group.
Yeah.
It wasn't these mixed albums. As far as I know, there weren't a ton of
No, you had to tape. If you wanted to do that, you had to have your boom box, and you had to record it off the radio.
Which is what my mom and dad told me to, and I said, "You guys are old. Stop talking to me."
No, it's pretty cool. I had some tapes from back then.
But that's the problem for me. So this might be a little easier for you because you might have some albums that are near and dear to you. But I do have one album that's near and dear to me, and you're gonna hate it because, it's Dr. Dre's 2001. That was my entire childhood. and my mom wouldn't let me listen to it because she was a smart person. And I had to hide that album from her, but damn it, did I listen to every song on that thing 100 times.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of them. I'll let you go from there.
I'm going to go. Look, there's albums out there that are iconic, okay? And maybe I'm going to start it off a little differently. Albums, like I've just mentioned a few minutes ago, the Seeger Against the Wind album, solid all the way through. Bob Seger, Greatest Hits, solid all the way through. Could I live?
Are we doing Greatest Hits albums?
You can do a Greatest Hits if you want to.
Are we including Greatest Hits albums? Because that changes this conversation
Well, you can do
drastically.
a Greatest Hits because that's a little bit, you get a better album.
All right, then that changes this. All right, go ahead.
So you get that, but and I think of these albums in terms of what they bring. So some that I would think of that would be amazing to have is Supertramp, Breakfast in America. Amazing album, late 70s, early 80s. It set the standard. You've got the Beatles' White Album. I mean, you've got Led Zeppelin, what they call 5.
1 through 4.
1 through 4. You got to
pick one.
You got to just pick one. Led Zeppelin. You got AC/DC, Back in Black.
Hell yeah.
I mean, you got these songs. I have, and then you go on into the 80s. You get the Prince,
Purple Rain.
I mean, that the whole soundtrack to that movie. That's just, hit after hit. You get those kind of moves. But there are several for me, and one year, and I'm encouraging the listeners here. There's a group called the Silencers, and it was a band, an Irish band, or a Scottish band. I'm sorry, and they had an album out in the late. I'm trying to think. I want to make sure I got the name here for it. Is the album that I listen to, have it on my list of
Silent Highway, A Letter from St. Paul.
From St. Paul.
There we
The
go.
Silencers, A Letter from St. Paul. It's that early 80s U2-ish kind of sound.
Do you have a song that you in particular you're thinking of?
Do I now?
Do you have a song in particular you're thinking of?
On that album, it's just any on that album. Painted Moon, I Can't Cry. Bullets and Blue Eyes. I always wanted to take Bullets and Blue Eyes and be the song. Be the guitarist on it. I always wanted to perform. Back when I was a kid, I could see me performing live because Bullets and Blue Eyes was just a great, great song. It's I Can't Cry. By the way, for the pro-life community, I Can't Cry, I would encourage you to listen to that song. I don't know if they wrote it to be pro-life, but it is one of the best pro-life songs I've ever heard. And you would never know it's a pro-life song unless you listen like we did. We listened to the words.
Sure.
So for me, just one that would pick me up, put me in a mood. I've had that. I have it on cassette. I still have the cassette of this album, but I've now downloaded it. It's digitized so I can hear it. I can go 6 months and never listen to it and then listen to the entire thing, every word for word, sing it out loud.
This is Bullets and Blue Eyes.
Yeah.
I can feel that. Now you brought some up that changes everything drastically for me. And that is you brought up greatest hits albums.
Okay.
This one changes. I believe that this should be a Broadway play. I believe that their music should be used in you could do an entire movie just based off their music, and that's Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, ELO. Oh, yes. Yes.
Their greatest hits is the greatest hits, and I'm a diehard Zeppelin fan. I'm a diehard Jimi Hendrix fan. I don't even need to get into all the songs I love from every rapper of my generation and before me. ELO's greatest hits top anything you'll ever hear because every one of them is different. Every single song is different. Every single song has something that represents you in some way. You don't even know it. Their greatest hits, I'm Taking on an Island with Me, and I will die listening to that album.
Yeah.
100%.
It's an amazing album. Look, ELO, I mean, it's just the whole, that, again, there's so many things that came out of the 70s, 60s to the point where,
Anything from Chicago.
yeah, Chicago, you got Chicago's greatest hits. You got you know, so many with, you know, Seeger. You got Journey. I mean, how
Journey's another one that, I mean, what if you look at you know what it is? I think about Journey.
the Escape album was amazing.
Well, I think the thing is, though, that people forget, especially my generation, because we weren't alive for when it came out, and maybe you guys do too, but you forget, oh, that's a Journey song? Oh, that's a Journey song? Oh, you're like, oh, I had no idea. And that happens to me all the time. My dad always been in the car like, yeah, of course. And I'm like, you didn't know that. Shut up.
Yeah.
But like, it's true. Like he first of all, if your parents don't show you the music that they liked when they were younger, that is poor sportsmanship on that.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah, every parent should be showing their kid what they liked. And then they're going to form their own opinions and they're going to hate your music in some way, shape, or form. But I actually grew up with every song, my mom's Motown records, all of my dad's classic rock records. Steve Miller Band was playing so often that at one point I had that song on repeat on a record player, and I wore a blanket around my neck and pretended to be flying like an eagle. That's not a joke. It's embarrassing, but it exists. There's tape.
Yeah, my boys listen. I mean, because they'll tell you. That U2, of course, U2 greatest hits. Now, I'm a U2 snob a little bit. For me,
I hate that.
U2
so much.
U2 is from 88 backwards. Now, their newer stuff has been okay, but 88 backwards to 77 is my time frame with U2. Boy, October, you know, Unforgettable Fire, Joshua Tree, Live at Red Rocks. That for me was U2. You know, so I can do a greatest hits, you know, from that generation. Now, I got in the 90s, they lost me. In the 2000s, they lost me a little bit. Got some good.
Yeah, but they lost. And also, it doesn't help. I don't know. I know we've talked about the McAfee show on here before, but they dogged their performance at the Sphere in Vegas. They said that was some of the worst live music they've heard in their entire life.
Oh, really?
Now, I'm sure you've been to a couple U2 shows.
Oh, I have.
And I'm sure you also probably got the iPhone that forced you to listen to their music. That pissed everybody off, and that put him in a bad place too. But you can't get rid of Bono; he's forever. So
well, he's there.
You know.
Well, and it brings back a lot. I mean, and again, I mean, I can do a lot of one-offs, but I mean, you get a lot of the U2. Now, one we haven't mentioned. This goes back to your roots, and that is Springsteen.
Don't mention that man to me. He's the worst. I can't stand him. He is the worst. His music is all the same. Oh, I drove a Jeep over some grass. That's just all every song. And he's like, I was in New Jersey. And don't get me wrong. I get it. I get why people like him. He has his stay at the Stone Pony, which is my favorite venue on the planet. That's where he started. That's where a lot of musicians in Jersey got their start. It's one of the best places you'll ever go for a good time. But I cannot stand Bruce Springsteen.
But you got to go back to Nebraska. And Live from Asbury.
No, I don't.
Live from Asbury
I don't have to go
Park. Anywhere. I mean, I've got, you know, Thunder Road. I mean, those songs. I mean, I'm a sucker for the old stuff. Now, you know, what I call old rock and roll, straight up rock and roll. You know, just the tell a story kind of stuff.
Sure.
Because it also remember
some Leonard Skinner.
Skinner. I mean, I'm from the South too. I mean,
they tell a lot of stories.
Oh. You get Skinner, you get the Almonds, Greg Almond, the Almond
Hell yeah.
So Melissa, Statesboro Blues. You know, I mean, you just go on and on. You know, with Skinner, the Ballad of Curtis Lowe. You know, Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama. I mean, you know,
Freebird is the only song I know that's taken a life of its own over any song on the history of the world.
It has.
It's just no one has ever. That is the most requested song at a time when it shouldn't be requested in the history of music.
Yeah, and I have a sadness, and for the last like 15 years, 16 years, and I'm just freely admit this, I've always liked Freebird. I like it in doses, you know, as it comes and goes, but I had a tragedy in my church. It was back when I was pastoring, and a young man up the street from us, literally, and I'll say this, and I'm also going to tag it. He committed suicide. And if you're out there struggling today, and if you're hearing this, please get help. People love you. I love you. If you're listening to this, I don't care where you are. Get on that email. You plug me. I will
Talk
call
to
you personally. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you do not struggle with depression. Please. There are people who love you.
I've lost someone to suicide myself, so
Yeah.
it's not.
But I
it's
had a
ugly.
young man, and they played it at his funeral.
Oof.
And it was just tough, and I can still hear, and so we'll just draw it out here for a second. When he got to the part, it says, it's my, he says, it's my fault. I mean, his mother just screamed, and it's just like I can't hear that, now.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. So, but any of the Skinner stuff, Greg Allman, you got the 38 Special, you got Blackfoot, you got Mother's Finest, you got so much of that generation. And that's not even counting the big ones, Zeppelin and Rolling Stone.
Yeah. Zeppelin has its own. I think Zeppelin's in its own category. Before we hop off this, though, I want to just bring something when you hop right back.
Yep.
This is a lighter funeral story. I know that's a horrible thing to say out loud, but because you brought this up, I have to bring this up. Have you seen the movie Old School?
That's the Will Ferrell one?
Yeah.
I've seen part of it. I hadn't seen the whole thing.
There's a part in the movie where he makes an old man sing Dust in the Wind. He sings Dust in the Wind to Blue, who died.
Yeah.
So this is real, and I regret this every day because I can't stop. It makes me laugh and cry at the same time. My friend's grandfather passed away.
Yeah.
So we all went to his funeral. We all went to the church.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Dust in the Wind was being played on an acoustic guitar during this man's funeral.
Yeah.
And it's dead silent. And me and my friends are all kind of laughing because this is from a movie we all watched as kids. And we're holding each other's hands trying not to laugh. And there's a scene in the movie where he says, "You're my boy, Blue," at the end. Somebody in the back of this place goes, "You're my boy, Blue." I've never heard a place erupt like that in my life out of sheer laughter and sheer sadness at the same time.
Yeah.
It was, I've never seen, but I couldn't.
It was probably the best thing ever.
It was, because everyone was super silent and somebody just way in the back of the church, "You're my boy, Blue." And I was like, there's no way. We're holding each other's hands trying not to laugh. Finally, everyone burst out, thank God. But I just had to throw that in there because it's one of my favorite stories.
I do funerals. I've done a lot of funerals. Conducted a lot of funerals.
As a pastor, I imagine you would.
I've done. We got to be getting into 150, 200 plus.
Oh, my God. Duh.
Yeah. Tons. Okay. And I made a commitment, and I don't know if it is this way in New Jersey, it is in Georgia. And I say this to my, if I have my pastor brethren listening, just bear with me. I am so tired of most funerals. And it came across to me, and I felt my spirit led in my quiet time, my prayer time, that, I'm there to say, yes, there is hope. There is, that's why Christ came. I mean, there's salvation. And you talk about that, especially the person's faith and others. But I've had people who simply use it as a second sermon without getting to know the family, even if they didn't know the family real well. So I have committed, and I've pretty well done this, over all of those funerals. I cannot write off, tell you I've done the exact same funeral. In fact, I know that's true, but I'm just to hedge the bet, I've used almost different scripture for almost every funeral.
That's impressive.
And mainly because I would try to make it fit the person and fit the family.
Sure.
And if I knew them, that kind of thing. So again, funerals though, and I feel like there's a laugh and a cry moment. And I've had some that were gut wrenching for me. Okay.
Of course.
Just, friends and all that have died. And I did family members, but it's just, you mix it. So, I mean, that story is pretty cute to me because I make a statement in funerals all the time. And I say this, I said, folks, please know something. You are not here because this person died. And some of them will sort of look at me funny, especially some of the younger ones. And I'll say, look, remember, you're not here. Yeah, there's a death, and that's why you're in this room. But you're not here because they died. You're here because they lived.
You're here because you love them.
You're here because they meant something to you in life. You didn't just randomly walk down the street and say, hey, I'm dropping in a funeral home today and see what's happening. You know, you just don't do that.
Yeah.
And so I emphasize that part. So I get it with music and funerals, and sometimes I laugh at the music selection and I cry at the music selection and everything.
You're in Georgia, so I'm assuming it's not really a large Italian community. But where we are, what you've done, I'm sure you've done the like you've been around the wakes and whatnot. Italian wakes take 2 days for reasons I can't explain. 2 days and a funeral and then a party after, but listen, it's not the worst thing in the world. My grandmother actually needed the 2 days because I think about 100,000 people showed up. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But we have one Jewish aunt who married into the family, and she said something. Everybody's like kind of silent and sad, and she just goes, if you were Jewish, all you would do is bury this body in the ground and move on, huh? And we were all looking around and we're like, what is wrong with you? But it was also really funny. So occasionally you need that like little joke in there.
Yeah.
Wow, we went off the topic of music, but that's what this show is. This is a show about going from music to death almost immediately.
But it applies. We think about music and it brings us to real life situations.
Yeah, it brings you. Think about all the emotional things attached to music in your life. There are songs I can't listen to. You told me about with Freebird. It's hard to listen to, but like there are songs I will not listen to for reasons.
Oh.
I couldn't say them on this air, but I can't. But like I can't listen to them anymore.
I've got songs on my Spotify playlist that it's like, why do I have this song on my playlist? Because every time I do, it makes me think of somebody or my mom, or it makes me think of somebody.
Right.
I still listen to it, and it's just like, I'm just in tears. Sort of get choked up with it as you go. Again, but I think that's why I'm such a, if you follow my career, and especially intellectual property, copyright, all these kind of things is such a passion for me, is because I've understood something, and the songwriters and I have always gelled. Now, I can't play an instrument really well. I could play chopsticks, or I could play, a little bit, and I just never did. And I always wanted to. I always wanted to be, play guitar or play whatever. But when I got involved with the songwriters and the musicians and taking up their cause, one of the things that hit me is that all what they have comes from within them. It wells up within inside them. It comes to their heart. It goes to their mind. And it comes through their hands, and it comes through their mouth, and that's how they make a living. And I realized, in a really strange way, that was me, except just in a different way. I make my living, and I feed my family, and I supply for my family by what is in my mind, that comes out of my heart, that comes out of my hands and my mouth. I'm not a house builder. Now I can build stuff, but that's not what I do. I can build a fence, but that's not what I do. What I do is I'm a lawyer, I'm a pastor, I'm a politician, I'm a talk show host, I'm a media person. I do that. So it relates that everything is valuable when it comes from you. And I think that's something that music provides as we go forward in looking at this. Why I wanted to do this episode and say, what would we have? I mean, we can think of a lot of stuff that we would have musically. Because there's days I'll listen to classical. There's days I'll listen to just nothing but Miles Davis and jazz.
Sure.
It just depends on my mood.
I was a punk rock kid. You could catch me out there doing some. I've gone into crowds and fought people. I loved that stuff when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
You just get out there, you swing, you skank, or whatever everybody called it when we were younger. Like there's different. There are versions of me as a human being, and I'm sure of you, that are related directly to music.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and as you look at it, that's what makes it interesting. I got one more before we get going, because I told you when we started talking about it, I said I got 2 albums that nobody, and I promise you I got 2 albums nobody probably ever heard of except me. The first one was the Silencers, and I encourage you, if you go on. Here's an interesting thing though. The next one I'm going to give you, you're going to have to go to, and you said you were Apple anyway, so you'll be able to find it. The first one is Silencers, and they have that album, Letter from St. Paul. And the other one is Danny Wilson.
Danny Wilson,
and the album was Meet Danny Wilson, M-E-E-T, Meet Danny Wilson. Now, you're going to know one of the songs on there immediately when I tell you, and that is Mary's Prayer.
Sure.
But that whole album, again, is like this. And here's the crazy part. The whole album is very similar to the Silencers in the sense the sort of the rhythms and the just sort of an interesting music mix in it. I have kept those 2 cassettes with me for, I'm not joking you, longer than Lisa and I have been married, and we've been married coming up 36 years this year. And they've traveled with me. I got another one from the band called the Hooters that were out of Pennsylvania. They were a great band. They had several hits. And you look,
I love that name.
They had several hits. I agree, but I actually got to meet them. I kid you not. About 6 years ago, I got to meet them at a fundraiser in New York. I had the cassette jacket. I had the cassette with me, and they signed the cassette jacket. The two guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just cool. But if you ever look them up, they were sort of a cult band, and I don't say cult. That's the wrong word. They were a regional band that did make a couple of big hits in Pennsylvania, probably in New Jersey. They probably played clubs in New Jersey all the time.
I'm sure they did. I mean, we have that guy, Southside Johnny, or whatever his name is. Everybody loves him in New Jersey. He's kind of like an off-brand. Everybody in our area knows him, but I don't think a single human being outside of the tri-state area has ever heard of Southside Johnny and the whatever the hell they are.
Yeah, you get it. So anyway, there's my two. I promise you to, so go out and look at them. The Silencers and Danny Wilson, and again, probably for most part, one or two albums, all they ever did. And most of them, they're both European bands, they're both UK bands, but I just thought it's pretty cool.
Do you want to know the power of music?
What's that?
Give you real quick. See this on my arm?
Yeah.
That's a band I don't listen to anymore. That I got tattooed on myself when I turned 18. Do I listen to them occasionally? Maybe I've heard them once or twice. But I'll tell you what. Every time I go into a tattoo shop to get a new tattoo, they ask me about it. I tell them the story, and they're like, do you ever want to get that covered up? And I go, I don't know if I ever do, and I don't know if I ever will. And maybe one day I will when somebody goes, hey, you're an idiot. You need to have a life.
What was the band?
The band is called Real Big Fish. They are a ska band, Doug. Ska, Doug. I'm telling you that from 15 to 18, I was just a punk little kid who just wanted to party his way through life. And they were a band from like 2002. They didn't even matter. But I went to their concerts and a bunch of those bands. And it's weird, but like at that time in my life, I was like, I'm rebelling against something. I don't know. Who cares? Point is, maybe I'll get rid of it one day. Maybe I'll cover it up, get a sleeve for that. But at the moment, like I always think about it, I'm like, that was when I was 18 and the dumbest person I could possibly be having the time of my life. And it's okay. And that's what music does for you. I went to as many concerts as I possibly could. I'm sure you did too, where it was like, it's one of the few things you get to do independently too when you first get older.
Oh, yeah.
Is concerts with your friends. That's a huge deal. And that, to me, music is everything. And I slowed down on it a bit, but I'm back and I'm listening to everything right now. Thank God for Apple Music.
We have a young lady who Lisa and I sort of consider a second daughter in the sense that because she's like one of ours. She is one of Lisa's best friend's kids, and she's worked for me and she's in DC. But she has this. She's over the top about this band, and you may know this band. I don't. Called Camino.
I've never heard of that in my band in my life.
But she's on their inner circle list. I mean, she posts everything about it, and I love it. I may not like the band, I may love the band. I don't know, but yeah, I just love to see people, loving what they do. And
yeah, there's artists that will just change your life, and you don't even know.
Okay, we also, as we always do on this, though, we always throw out stuff that will curl some people's hair. I've got to tell you, I've got several that will curl people's hair. Absolutely not a fan of Fish.
No, I'm with you. They're nonsense.
I am not a fan of, except for one song, The Grateful Dead.
I am with you. You and my dad could hang out. It's pretty dangerous. He hates them with everything.
Yeah, I never got into the music. I'm not a big Dave Matthews fan.
Yeah, so you're not a big jam band guy.
Not really. I mean,
which is okay. There are some good jam bands, and I've listened to them, but that 20-minute and our songs are all different. Why the hell do I want to show up to a different concert?
Yeah, give me Jimmy Buffett. If I want to hear jam, I'll hear Jimmy Buffett. I'd hear Buffett. But again, and I see that, and they got like some of the big, the sort of rock bands. I mean, I like some of Metallica. I don't like all of Metallica. I like, there's some others, but they've just gone sort of this, status, that they have. And why Sirius XM, by the way, hint, if you want to change some channels here, you have a Fish channel, you have a Dave Matthews channel, you have, find somebody else here for a little while. Grateful Dead channel.
I'll tell you something that's going to upset you and all our people.
Yeah.
I don't listen to country music.
Really?
in any way whatsoever. I'm sorry, I apologize. I listen to a ton of Johnny Cash, if that
There you
counts
go.
for anything.
Johnny's the original bad boy.
All right, but everything else, I can't get into it.
Have I told you about Johnny? The stories about Johnny? You know, and by the way, I have a friend of mine who knows Johnny's son. And
Sure.
they found.
I just saw that video of him singing a couple months ago.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, which is crazy. One of his songs. But anyway, and I think I've said this before, but Johnny Cash was bigger than Elvis worldwide. And people don't realize that.
It's because Johnny Cash went to jail and Elvis didn't.
Well, there's a reason for that, too.
That's the government trying to keep the man down is what it sounds like.
The man in black, baby. The man in black. Boy named Soup.
Yeah.
San Quentin.
I listen to that song at least once a week because it's on one of the programs I put together. I listen to that at least once a week, and I just think to myself, that's the funniest song I've ever heard. And it was written like 50, 60 years ago.
Oh, it's
probably longer than that.
Yeah, it was 60. It was 60 years. He said he played it at San Quentin, and he played it at.
That's right. Yeah, he's just said like, I mean, he's original band. Like showing up to prison to play an album. You can't do that anywhere else.
And making fun of the warden while he's there. So it's like.
Coolest man in the world.
Folks, this is why we have these shows. It's been a joy. Music, and that's why we have our songwriters on. And I'm trying to get some more songwriters on. We're going to have some more as we go forward. But look, music changes the world. Movies. We've talked about movies this last few weeks. We got plenty of politics coming up. It's going to change the world. We'll get back to reality as we go. But share it with your friends. I mean, here's what I'd like for you out there if you're listening to the Doug Collins podcast: is you share these episodes that are a little more lightheaded and fun. Get some folks in here. Especially if you're conservative, we've got to reach out to younger generations and others and bring people in. And if these shows like this will get them to listen to us occasionally, maybe they'll listen to us when we start talking about economics and start talking about other stuff and get them. Maybe not. Hey, we'll throw it in. So share this episode, save it, subscribe to it. We're glad you're a part of it. We'll see you next time on the Doug Collins Podcast.